Out in California, there is a software engineer who has been trying to figure out his work-life balance, finishing code and playing in one of the world's most watched sports tournaments, the Men's Cricket World Cup.
So I try to switch on and switch off. So when I'm focusing on my work, I'm completely switched on my work. And if I'm on the field, I'm completely on the field. So that really helps me, switching on and switching off.
That's Saurabh Netravalkar, an engineer for Oracle and a star player for Team USA. He led his team to a massive upset earlier this month, beating a titan of cricket, Pakistan.
The red, white and blue of USA has overcome the 2022 finalists. The stars and stripes are flying high and proudly in Dallas, Texas.
Saurabh spoke with my colleague, tech reporter Pranshu Verma, who is obsessed with cricket.
Yeah, I mean, the way I've been kind of telling my buddies is like, Team USA beating Pakistan is kind of like a mediocre college basketball team, beating like the Lakers or the Mavs or something. Like it's pretty unexpected for something like that to happen whatsoever.
Team USA is advancing to the next round. They're playing South Africa on Wednesday. And Pranshu says the story of this team and of Saurabh tells us something about the future of cricket in the U.S., a sport that is still not in the mainstream here. So Pranshu wanted to talk to Saurabh.
I got on the phone with him because he's actually a normal dude. He's not a pro cricketer like you and I would think, like a LeBron. He's a 32-year-old Indian software engineer. He's here on a green card, and he's basically representative of such a huge influx of tech workers, right? They have come in over the past 10, 20 years, and they've made their money and they've kept their nostalgia for cricket.
I've seen exponential growth of people being inquisitive and learning about the sport, showing up to watch. So that itself is like sowing the seeds for growth.
And so if cricket is to make it in the United States, it's going to be on the backs of people like Saurabh, these Indian American, Pakistani American, Bangladeshi Americans. They're bringing their love of the game mainstream.
From the newsroom of The Washington Post, this is Post Reports. I'm Elahe Izadi. It's Tuesday, June 18th. Today, a classic Cinderella sports story, the U.S. men's cricket team. Pranshu tells us about the game of cricket and the people trying to make it a sensation here in the United States. So, Pranshu, tell me a little bit more about the World Cup and what happened with Team USA.
Sure. So the World Cup that we're playing right now is called the T20 World Cup. So there are 3 different forms of cricket that are played generally. There's an arduous 5-day version called Test. There's a 1-day version.
Test because it's a test.
It's a test of your will. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it's over 5 days.
Yeah.
And then you have a 1-day format, which can be played over 8 hours. And then you have the format that we're seeing happen right now, which is called T20. Explosive 3 to 4 hour version, really entertaining to watch, really high octane. And that World Cup is happening for the first time ever in the United States and in the West Indies. And it's kind of seen as an attempt to make that format of the game popular in the United States. This is the second most watched game in the world. And
you
yet,
mean the tournament or just cricket?
Cricket in general.
Wow.
The sport is the second most watched
What's the
sport.
first?
Soccer.
Wow.
Yeah. So after soccer, it's cricket. And yet, in the United States, barely anybody knows barely anything about the game. And so there's been this huge move to make this sport actually gain legs in the United States. And this is kind of one of the first moments we're seeing it enter even into the basics of the mainstream. And women's cricket is also starting to emerge. Later this year, there's going to be the T20 World Cup for women in October. And in places like India, where cricket is pretty mainstream, you're starting to see women play in their own version of a major league, in their own Premier League. So we're starting to see the seeds of women's cricket emerge on the heels of the popularity of the men's game.
I mean, I don't know that much about cricket. Let's actually just step back and talk about how cricket even works for folks who have never really heard of it.
That's true.
So all I know is I actually thought it was always 5 days long. I thought it was a very long sport. My knowledge of cricket is mostly based on a historical, fictional Bollywood movie, Lagan.
Yes.
Which that's like probably not true.
You're bringing me back to my childhood.
Yeah, but in this movie, basically, my recollection of the plot is this is like British colonial India, and we have like an Indian village, and they want to fight against like their British colonizers, and they have to learn this brand new game, cricket. And I won't give away the ending, but that's probably not how cricket was introduced into India.
No, definitely not.
But tell me a little bit more about cricket. Like, give me Cricket 101 for people who don't know anything about it.
Okay. So cricket is originally a sport that originated in the United Kingdom. And with British colonialism, it was a major export. So you see the countries that were colonized by the United Kingdom actually have a lot of influence in the sport. So you'll see India, Pakistan, you'll see Sri Lanka, you'll see Australia, you'll see,
the Caribbean.
The Caribbean, yeah, exactly. You'll see places in East and West Africa. You'll see these, Commonwealth nations doing quite well and really picking up the fervor for cricket, but it's kind of a byproduct of, colonialism.
And so is my idea of it in my head is it's sort of like baseball? Is that true? Like how is the game played?
In this version that we're playing, you have 20 overs for each team, right? And each over is 6 balls that are pitched.
Is that like an inning?
And that's kind of like an inning.
Okay.
So 20 innings, 6 balls an inning. And you just basically got to score as much as you can in those 20 overs. You have 10 players. And so whatever comes first, either you play all those 20 innings or all those 10 people are struck out. Whatever comes first and whatever score you make, that's your score. And then the other team has a chance to either match that score or beat it. And then that's how you decide who wins.
And so there's like I'm sorry to dumb it down for my American mind, but are there like pitchers and catchers and batters like the same in baseball? Yeah.
There are batsmen, so just like the batters. Then there are bowlers, so those are pitchers. So in cricket, you call it bowling. You don't call it pitching. And then you have all-rounders, who are people that do pitching and batting as well.
So right now, part of these games are being played in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to learn more about some of the members of Team USA, because from the sounds of it, it's not like a pro team in the sense of maybe these are full-time athletes. It's kind of scrappy, right? So who are these players?
Oh, man. So it's a 27-man roster, and they are part-time players. I mean, Saurabh is the star bowler, and he's an Oracle engineer by day. Others are pharmacists. There's personal trainers. There's clinical research associates. I mean,
this movie writes
crazy.
itself.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's the band of most ordinary gentlemen.
Wow.
Taking on, compare it to like India or Pakistan, where lead cricketers get millions of dollars, have millions of Instagram followers, right? And they play it professionally. These are definitely some of the most ordinary guys compared to who they're going up against.
Tell me a little bit more about Saurabh Netravalkar. How did he find himself in this moment?
So he was a really good junior cricket player in India, really one of the tops. But he wasn't good enough to make the national team. He tried for years. And so he basically was like, all right, I'm not going to make the pros in India. He also liked to do this thing called computer engineering and software coding. So he's like, okay, maybe I give up my cricket dream and I go become a software engineer.
I mean, how many of us, right?
And, it's like,
give up our hoop dreams.
Exactly right. Give up hoop dreams. And if you're South Asian, engineering and coding is exactly what you go into. And so he got accepted into Cornell for a master's in computer science, came to the United States. And that's kind of where his love for cricket got sparked again, right? He never thought he was going to play cricket again. But then he saw kids on Cornell's campus playing.
I was walking to class and I saw a few kids in Cornell just playing for fun on a public park. So I felt emotional. I just joined them, played for fun.
Wow.
And he was like, I got to play again. And so he started playing again and he started doing good. But he was like, I can't make this a full-time job. And so he then in 2016 graduated from Cornell with his Ivy League master's degree in computer science, got a job at Oracle as a software engineer, moved to the Bay Area, And that's where the itch kind of grew even more and more to keep playing, because there are a lot of tech workers. There are a lot of people who are South Asian immigrants, and they play cricket a lot. So like he really tries to like separate his day, but he'll put in a full 8, 10, 12 hours, especially like when he was beginning. He was a junior coder, so he was grinding it out. And then in the nighttime, like logging off after like a 10, 12-hour day of coding, he goes to like one of the AstroTurf kind of cricket fields in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then he heard that in LA, cricketers were playing on grass fields. So he was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
So then I started driving 6 hours to LA on Friday, playing in LA and coming back on the weekend. So that's how it started gradually.
Wow. So he would commute from San Francisco to LA on the weekends.
On the weekends to play on a proper field. Yeah.
How does he balance all of this?
Yeah. I mean, like, so it's kind of hard, right? Like, he made Team USA in 2018. And since then, he's like had to do cricket practice, do the workouts that are required. He's like, well, Oracle has a really good gym. So, he'll like go to the work gym. He got remote work arrangements.
I try to schedule my Zoom meetings accordingly where I can make it. And I try to manage my time smartly.
How does he think about his work balance with cricket?
He really likes it. I mean, to the fact where I was like, so dude, like you're kind of blowing up. Like, are you just going to quit and like do this full time?
Blowing up, like becoming really famous.
Becoming really famous with all this, his huge win, against Pakistan. And like, you're becoming pretty famous. He's like, nah, man, like I kind of still want to code. Like wants to be a software engineer by day and cricketer by night. I mean, like, yeah, it's kind of wild, right? Because like he's such a normal guy. So like even like in the weeks leading up to the World Cup, right? You'd imagine like nothing else is on his mind but, cricket and bowling,
like
Rocky montage, right? Like he's in his Rocky montage training. Nope, not at all. Like this guy is still like shipping off code for this AI project that he's working on. So he's like, he was actually not sure that USA was even going to make it.
Wow.
Like his out of office and vacation time was only booked until like June 17th. But like, I was like, well,
what is he going to do?
So he's like, I gotta ask my bosses to like give me some more time off
to play in the World
in the World Cup. He's like, I kind of need to take more time off. I'm like, yeah, you kind of need to take more time off.
Yeah, maybe just some sick days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because it sounds like in your telling, the real turning point was when Team USA beat Pakistan. I'm wondering what that moment meant for Saurabh. What did he tell you about how he sees this moment in cricket in the U.S.?
So he is humble. So he obviously is like, this is a team thing. Like he's just one part of it.
We had all worked so hard for this game and then we finally came through. So I was really happy for everybody.
But he realized that this was a moment where it captured the attention of mainstream America. But also, this is a guy that gave up cricket, right? Like, this is a guy that said, maybe I wasn't good enough to play in the pros where it was really intense in a place like India or Pakistan. And now he's kind of getting that chance again. He's getting that chance to play on the level that he always thought he was going to play on.
After the break, what's behind cricket's rising popularity in the U.S. and what's standing in its way? We'll be right back. Okay, Pranshu, we've heard about how Saurabh got into the game and also how he ended up on Team USA. But what is the broader state of cricket's popularity in the United States? Can you paint a picture for me about that? And also in terms of creating a pipeline for new players? Because regardless of how popular or not it's here, like how are there people actually getting engaged to learn the game and play?
Cricket is in its early infancy in the United States. And it's really on the backs of South Asian immigrants, and they're doing a few things. Like there's a professional sporting league in the United States that just started in 2022. The CEO of Microsoft and Adobe and, a bunch of former tech executives poured about $120 million into starting this league. And so there are 6 teams that are across the United States right now. So that's kind of one of the first like seeds of like cricket becoming a thing.
And can I ask you,
Yeah.
are those tech executives doing that because they love the game? There's a nostalgia. Do they see like a money-making avenue for this? Like, what's their motivation?
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll tell you it's nostalgia. They love cricket. They grew up with it. There's also a lot of potential money here. Like this is, again, second most watched sport in the world.
Right.
And if it goes mainstream, more and more eyeballs are in. These are potentially lucrative streaming deals that are to be had, right?
Yeah.
So it's both nostalgia and potential profits.
Do we know how many people are playing cricket in the U.S.?
So right now, there's about 200,000 people that
Okay.
are playing cricket in the United States, according to USA Cricket.
And then I also think about how if we're using it analogous, other leagues, there's also like youth teams associated with pro teams to kind of create this pipeline of like the future players. What do we know about kids or youth in the U.S. playing the game?
So the same folks that are starting Major League Cricket realize that they can't start a major league without the feeder system. And so there are cricket academies now that are cropping up across the United States in areas where there are a lot of, immigrant populations that care about it. So Texas, California, North Carolina, Florida, New York, you'll see some cricket academies popping up. And you'll see a minor league feeder system to that major league cricket league that is also created. So there's kind of this pipeline and
Like
farm
an
system
ecosystem.
that is starting to develop. I talked to one of the co-investors of this league, and he was like, the thing that I need to do is if I'm a middle school kid in the United States, I need to think cricket is for me. And that infrastructure is just starting to be built right now.
Why isn't cricket a bigger deal in the U.S. than it is right now? Because, I mean, I'm thinking about its British roots and how it's in a lot of Commonwealth countries. I mean, we have sports and other things here that originated from the UK. Like, why is cricket one that hasn't really crossed over?
I think in the United States, where there have been other major league sports that have grasped the attention of people, one of the most important things was the thing that we talked about, which is the length of the game, right? Getting somebody to watch a game over 5 days or watch a game for 8 hours at a time, it's hard to like make that mainstream if it's not a part of your culture. There are parallels here. There are other sports. Like think about soccer in the United States in the 1980s, right? Like it's kind of at the same place where cricket was. Like international sport, a lot of people abroad loved it. But in the United States, sure, kids played it, after school, but like nobody was really watching US soccer in the 1980s. Like it was still very early on. And it took like 20 to 30 years. It took Messi. It took the US men's national team, the US women's national team. It took so much mainstream attention for it to become a thing. And so that's where the cricket executives really look now is like they view cricket as like where Major League Soccer was, 20 to 30 years ago.
So what obstacles does cricket face in terms of making it big in the United States?
They're going to need a star. They're going to need a breakout star. Like Saurabh is most certainly a breakout star for his story. They're going to need a Lionel Messi that has world appeal to come to Major League Cricket. I think if you ask the investors, like they want an internationally famous, so like a Virat Kohli or something like that.
I don't know who that is, but yes, okay.
Literally the best, the GOAT in India for batting.
Okay,
like pretty intense.
Yeah.
So they need somebody of that stature to come one day and make it here, right? You need stadiums too, right? Like you can't play then you need the infrastructure.
Yeah,
right?
tell me about that.
Yeah, listen, like you can't just play cricket on a baseball field. Like the dimensions are different. You can hit behind you. You can hit to the left of you, to the right of you. Like it's definitely a different event. So you have to retrofit these stadiums or you got to build them from scratch. You're going to need more teams and you're going to need more and more of these stories because I was talking to these cricket executives, like the goal is to get Amazon Prime or Hulu or Apple TV Plus to stream these games, right? But you need a certain amount of eyeballs. Willow is the streamer, the official streamer for cricket. And they're kind of this broad, bespoke, small cricket streaming company. I've been trying to find bars in DC that like can stream cricket. And there's not all like a guarantee that every bar is going to stream cricket because who knows who has Willow right now.
So the U.S. is improbably now advancing in the tournament. Can you just tell me what we should expect of them and the tournament going forward? What do I need to know to watch men's World Cup cricket?
Well, there's a big match. You know, if you're talking about the U.S. playing titans of the sport, the U.S. plays the current winner of the T20 World Cup on Sunday, June 23rd. They're playing England.
Wow.
So that's going to be a big game, right? So they have a couple of games lined up. They have the U.S. is going to be playing South Africa on the 19th. They're going to be playing the West Indies on the 21st. And so, you know, they've got a couple of pretty hard days ahead of them.
Has Saurabh told you anything about what's on his mind as he's going through the tournament and also his future plans?
I asked about his future plans. I was like, are you going to keep playing cricket? He's going to keep playing cricket as long as he can. He's going to still work.
I love my work as well. I love doing both. So as long as I can do both, I'll do it.
It's a little bit overwhelming, right? Like I think he's learning how to manage this kind of like newfound stardom. Like his phone is ringing off the hook. His family in India are getting phone calls like, oh my God, like your son is doing amazing. And so it's a little intimidating. So I think there's a part of his life he's realizing, you know, he's changing. This is not exactly, you know, it's not amateur night.
It's not a hobby.
Yeah, it's not amateur night in San Francisco anymore. This is India, Pakistan, England, South Africa, West Indies. These are the big boys.
Well, Pranshu, thank you so much for joining me, explaining, you know, how cricket works. I'm really excited now to watch these games.
Yeah, you know, find a bar. I mean, let's see how many people watch it at the bar. That's going to be a good test.
Thanks for joining me.
All righty. Thanks so much for having me.
Pranshu Verma is a tech reporter for The Post. There's one other story that caught my attention today. President Biden unveiled a new immigration policy for some undocumented immigrants married to U.S. citizens. This policy makes it easier for those undocumented spouses to apply for legal residency. Under current federal law, immigrants in this situation have to leave the U.S. for up to 10 years and then apply to return. This new policy lets undocumented spouses remain in the U.S. while applying for legal residency.
Today I'm announcing a common sense fix to streamline the process for obtaining legal status for immigrants married to American citizens who lived here for a long time.
Administration officials call this one of the most expansive immigration programs of Biden's presidency. But it also comes just weeks after Biden enacted more restrictions on immigration, including putting limits on seeking asylum at the U.S. southern border. That's it for Post Reports. Thanks for listening. If you want to show your support for the show, please consider subscribing to The Washington Post. Not only is it a great way to help us continue to do this work, but you can also now get access to Washington Post podcasts ad-free in Apple Podcasts. Subscribe in Apple Podcasts or by following the link in our show notes. Today's show was produced by Sabby Robinson. It was mixed by Sean Carter and edited by Monica Campbell. I'm Elahe Izadi. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories from The Washington Post.